Sharon, can you tell us about the personal journey that led to the creation of SAMS?
Yeah. So, like many of our clients, I was involved with the employment services agencies because I'd also experienced lots of challenges, some of those challenges being addiction, criminal justice system involvement, homelessness, domestic violence, and it was employment services that initially made life very difficult because I had to jump through so many hoops. But eventually, I was introduced to a manager in the Sunshine area who was able to help guide me through, I guess, a path of getting well. Took away some of the responsibilities around looking for a job and looking for a career, took that pressure off and helped me with the needs according to what I needed most.
And after meeting this agent that you mentioned, what motivated you to start your recovery process?
Yeah, so around about the same time, see, here's the thing about addiction. I just want to take a moment to explain that um, in this day and age, we know that addiction is a mental health condition. It's not a moral failing. And this particular agent or consultant understood addiction in that way. And for anybody who's addicted to substance, they are always trying to recover. Um, but it's a very difficult thing to do. So um, to kind of wrap it up. I was always motivated to do that to get better. I just didn't know how. But definitely the number one motivation was my child. So I was a single mum with with an only child. So it was my child.
So, you and your daughter faced homelessness at one point. Can you tell us more about that experience?
Yeah. My daughter, Montana, who I also co-created Sam's with, was about 11, 12 years old at the time. And when I mentioned domestic violence or family violence, it was actually not just to do with my intimate partner, but also his family. So his family were at I guess, at the very front of a lot of the perpetuating family violence. And so that meant finding that we didn't have a home one day. And that meant finding ourselves staying in a caravan park. It was humiliating, it was distressing, it was heartbreaking, really.
You've already talked a little bit about what it was like raising your daughter through these challenges, but I would like to know a little about how did you both come through it?
Wow. Hmm. Yeah, I found that I put one foot in front of the other, and there were some themes that I carried forward and taught my daughter, and they were things like just because we don't know what is coming or what is happening, it doesn't mean that we can't keep stepping forward and putting one foot in front of the other. Now, as a clinician, I know that's called tolerating uncertainty. Also, emotional regulation. I made sure that we went to art galleries, we went to the zoo, went to parks and picnics, and Montana did dancing for many hours a week. I myself come from a history of women who have experienced tremendous trauma, and I knew that if I didn't nip this in the bud and do something a little bit different, then this trauma would be carried forward. But it would be interesting to see what Montana's thoughts about that was. And also asking for help was really important. Mm.
It's so interesting to hear that the co creators of SAMS are mother and daughter. I would love to hear more about your story. So, how do you reflect on that time in your life and your mother's resilience?
How do I reflect back is probably a really interesting question now that I work in the job that I'm doing with my mum. I actually remember studying health at school at the time, I think, and I don't even know how this sits into it, but we were doing a section on homelessness. And I remember sitting back and going, oh, I'm ticking all those boxes. And just this mix has always been a mix of like the disadvantage and the struggle that you're going through. But I was extremely, and I'm extremely lucky with the resilience that my mother has, and growing up with that, and always having fun, really, and now working in an extremely, um, full on and important job, and hearing people's stories all the time, and then reflecting. It creates an opportunity to reflect back as well and think of our life and go, yeah, crap, it's hard. And it's hard if you don't have the right supports. But how privileged we are to now be those supports, I think is really cool.
I would like to know how it was for you to watch Sharon work so hard to support you and herself.
I know it's quite a special experience for me that I can say that seeing my mum work really hard for us, I did get the opportunity to feel that life is worth it. And what is really powerful to see, I think, is that because of that and because of how mum worked hard, I was able to do the studies that I've done, now create the program that we were creating, and are giving back from our lived experience to show that there is hope, and you're worth it.
How did you transition to studying addiction, mental health, and neuroscience?
So my substance of choice, so I started using substance at about 13, so it's probably not until I was 38 or 40 that I went through recovery. And that's because we learned about neuroscience. It was about that time, or not long before, that the functional MRIs came out, and that means that we could see what a brain was doing live. So as a brain is thinking, the MRI is filming it. So they discovered that the brain is plastic and can grow new neural pathways. Up until that point, I pretty much thought I was fried. When I realised I wasn't, I guess I set about to recover from my substance at the time, which was methadone, and that's as a result of heroin use. That's a substance that people think that you can never recover from, because it's a physical addiction as well as a mental addiction. So once I realized that the brain has pathways that grow, and I learned all about that, I got a part-time job and started to study at the same time, and just became really fixated on learning about how to fix my brain and then others as well.
So you became a psychotherapist.
That's right.
And eventually a national speaker on
Yeah.
addiction and trauma. How did that come about?
So still, I think my number one mentor, who I'm still good friends with, introduced me to the idea of speaking to groups of people, actually in the employment services sector. So as I studied, she introduced me to more and more people, and I would do, one of the classic talks that I do that is a day. It goes for a day, and it's the neuroscience of addiction. And I do this thing where we talk about a case study, and the case study is a woman of similar age and gone through similar experiences to mine. And there's some before photos, and I ask the people in the audience how the person might present, how the woman might present, and they'd say things like chaotic and disturbed and behavioural problems and all of those things that were true. But then at the end, I would show them slides of what the person looked like now, and it was actually me. And I found that at that particular point within the seminar, it would really address the idea of stigma and bias for people with addiction. And that was really quite profound. And so from there, I would get more and more bookings to work in the community services and health sector, and the emergency services, and the armed services sectors as well.
So, would you say that your personal experiences shaped the development of SAMS?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So if we look at what SAM stands for, the S is self-awareness, and M is motivation, and the other M is management. And self-awareness is the first thing they actually did was just really look at how addiction impacted me and why that happened. And I have ADHD, and was self-medicating for many years. The motivation part was clearly my daughter. I didn't want her to live through the same experiences that I did. And then the management is how I manage my life now. I still have ADHD, I still have chronic illness. There's remnants of 26 years of substance use, and that needs to be managed in an effective way. So SAMS is a direct replica of what I went through and how I recovered.
Now, bringing it back to the work you do on a daily basis, how does these experiences that you lived impact the participants that you're working with every day?
There's definitely something about having a lived experience, I think, and something that we really do explain, I guess, to our participants when they first join SAMS, or that their first appointment with SAMS, is that the complex needs clinicians, myself as the program lead, have done our studies. We're you can trust that we're evidence-based and clinical, but there is only so much that somebody can learn from a textbook. When a participant finds out that we've got our own lived experience and we're bringing that to the development of the program, it does support that feeling of safety, I think, and trust with that program. Um, what's really special is, some of the experiences where we've had participants who have been on opiate replacement therapy for many, many years, or maybe haven't even gotten to that stage yet, and they're in active addiction, and they will tell you to your face, well, every doctor has told me I'm not going to recover. Like, what's the point? And being able to say, well, this is Sharon's story. That's the CEO of SAMS, and bringing her in sometimes and actually getting them to have that opportunity to see that recovery is possible, really impacts those that are feeling like they can't recover.
I would like to know, what's the legacy you and Sharon hope to leave behind with SAMS?
To change the narrative around addiction, to change the narrative around what it means to be a survivor of trauma. And I think it's safe to say from me, I guess, to change that for not just our participants and the community, but for their children and their families moving forward.
And one of the last questions I would like to ask is, how does it feel to look back on your journey now from homelessness and addiction to where you are standing today?
I'm going to answer that honestly. Part of the pathways that are damaged during a long-term addiction are that experiencing joy or experiencing pride or experiencing some of those positive emotions are affected. So I often don't feel pride. I don't really know what that feels like, to do with myself. But I've decided that that's not going to stop me from doing what I do because it's essential. But I do like to see the pride through my daughter, and because I work with her, and through her clinicians and the clinicians that work through in the organisation. But also, I am proud of our clients as they achieve their accomplishments. I think the thing about addiction and recovery is that we have to make a weigh things up and what the costs and the benefits are. And if the cost is that I can't experience some of these emotions, is it worth recovering shit, yeah, like it's essential to still do that, but it's not to covet some of those experiences that I mightn't feel. So maybe I could feel prouder. I'm proud of my clients. I'm proud of my daughter, and I'm proud of my team.
Very inspiring to hear that. One last thing is, I'm sure a lot of people would want to know, what would you say to someone who's currently struggling with the same challenges that you face?
You're struggling with those challenges because of experiences that were maybe traumatic or that your body or brain couldn't handle. And if you feel worthless, it's because something's gone awry, because humans aren't meant to feel that way. If you feel worthless, somebody has let you down. And if you look hard enough, you'll find people like us and my team who can help. We're there, reach out because you're worth it.